This is Ranger Kidwell Ross, editor at worldsweeper.com and director of the World Sweeping Association. Today, I have a very interesting Zoomcast interview with two real old timers, even though they don't look that old, in the sweeping industry. We have on the left of your screen is Gina Vella, and to the right of the screen, Joey Vella. And they are second generation sweeping contractors in the Northern California area. And then at your upper left of the screen is Manny Saxena, and he is now the president and CEO of two of the companies formerly owned by the Bellas, Contract Sweeping, and Statewide. So what we're learning today is a little background about the Bellas as well, how they got into the industry. We have a couple interesting photos we can show you of times gone past when the sweeping industry was young and we were all a bit younger too. And then we'll move into what has happened with this transaction. Manny represents a company called Broadtree. It's a private equity company. We'll learn about what the advantages and differences and so forth are when you operate with a private equity company backing. But Gina, first, I think that it makes sense for you to show, you have a photo there of some roots of your company. And if you wouldn't mind showing us that and telling us what we're looking at.
So this picture that I'm going to show you is actually Joe and I's dad back in approximately 1958 or so. And this is what he started the sweeping company, Universal Sweeping Site Services, which used to be called San Jose Commercial Sweeping, then also Universal Sweeping Services. And in 2011, Joey and I changed it to Universal Site Services. This is back in the day what they used to sweep a parking lot with. And it was one of their sales and marketing material.
As you can see, that's some quite time ago with the prices at the grocery stores, 10 cents for milk.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even mind tuna for $1. It'd be okay.
Yeah, I know. That's a pretty good deal.
Right?
That's great. And I have a photo here too that I wanted to show. And if you would tell everybody what they're looking at with this one, when that comes up.
That's another blast from the past.
What do we have there?
That picture right there, that's our father on the right. And then you've actually got Mike Dyke and Larry Dyke. Mike Dyke in the middle and Larry Dyke to the left. They were all partners within, our dad ran the sweeping, and Mike and Larry and our dad was, they were all partners in Masco, Mr. Air Sweepers. And this is what was one of the service facilities of where our father shared the center place with. They built the sweepers and he ran Universal Sweeping Services out of that. The one person that is missing in this picture, Gina, is Frank Dorsa. Now, Frank Dorsa was our father's partner in Universal Sweeping Service. Our dad got around. He was owners in Masco. He was owners in Universal Sweeping Service, San Jose Commercial Sweeping, and then also car washes. Him and Frank Dorsa owned, God, I don't even know how many of the classic car washes that are still in operation today in Silicon Valley. And it's how our dad had the energy to do what he did. And those were very large footprints for us to be following all these years. And we were blessed with what he had started and that we inherited from him. And we just wanted to keep that legacy going. I mean, they say he's known as the grandfather of street sweeping. And yeah, he still says this stuff to the days, and we still hear the stories. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's been a treat. It truly is a treat to follow those footsteps. And I hope he's proud because we've done a lot to keep it going for him. and his name and his legacy, as well as Larry, Mike, Frank, and the Masco, the Dykes. It's been a family business, multiple families, for many years.
Well,
Well said, Joey.
yeah, nice job. And I think the industry deserves to hear some of those stories too. So I hope we can hook up some number of those people you just talked about in the Zoomcast later on and talk about those good old days when I know my beard was a different color.
Yeah.
If I could even grow one back then. So, today you still have universal sweeping. Is that correct? Which is
We do. It's now called Universal Site Services. It's a complete full service national company now. We participate from the west to the east on exterior maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But that brings us to the present. You also had contract sweeping and statewide. What's the rest of the statewide name?
It's Statewide Construction Sweeping.
That's it. I knew that.
And we are still involved and somewhat of principal owners within those two companies. This was something that we just didn't wipe our hands off and walk away. We just see the future of how Broadtree can, and this is part of probably one of the questions that will eventually come up, is how they can help us grow it even more. And with newer technologies, stuff that Gina and I just couldn't, we're workers. We hit the street running. That the tech world coming in, I get my hands down and dirty still. And, some of the stuff, it was outgrowing me. Gina, she probably does a lot better than me with inside the offices. That's why we've been such a good team together, is, ownership in the field, ownership within the offices. So, and that's why it was just brought with Broadtree is, we're glad to be partners with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, Manny, if you would, since you represent Broadtree and now have come in, I think, as the operating partner of Statewide and contract sweeping, talk a little about your background, or introduce the industry to you and your capabilities, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So, personally, I grew up in India and an engineer by background, came to the US for my formal business school or business education. After having received that, worked in both small and large companies in various capacities. And, one of the goals that I had coming into this great country was to be able to run and operate my own business. And, there were only two ways to go about doing that. One was to start a company and the other one was to go buy a company. For me, starting a company was exciting, but not as exciting because I was more lured towards working in large teams, getting people or your team excited about a common goal and working together to get that goal. That was more exciting to me than product market fit or raising large amounts of money to start bootstrap and start a company. So for me, buying a business kind of made more sense. And I started to evaluate options or figure out ways to buy a company without any money, to be honest. And that's when I kind of, stumbled into this private equity group, which was incidentally the polar opposite of what they were looking for. They were looking for hungry, financially educated operators like myself, who they would back in the event that I found a great company for them to back, and then they would put me as an operator. So Broadtree Partners is a private equity fund, and we typically invest in companies between $10 to $100 million in revenue. And Broadtree typically gets about 4 to 5 operators every year. And these operators, like myself, go out in the world to go acquire businesses. And when we find the businesses, we kind of go back to Broadtree to fund that acquisition. So that's what Broadtree is. And, and we look at hundreds of industries and thousands of companies, and then choose to invest in companies where we feel like where we feel like there's a strong brand presence, like Universal, Contract, and Statewide, We like to go after niche industries or market, which sweeping was. And then we know there's proven recipe for financial success, which is kind of evident with what's happening lately in the industry. So that's how we kind of decided to go ahead and come acquire contract sweeping and statewide sweeping. And it's been 6 months of running the business, and the biggest thing you're worried about when you buy a business is you hope that there are not any big surprises. And I must say, there have been surprises, but only good ones so far, and that includes the relationship I've had with Joe and Gina. And really excited about what's to come. So that's pretty much us and what we do, and looking to grow the business both organically and inorganically going forward.
So Manny, tell me when you first found out that about these two companies, and what made you think that this would be a good fit for Broadtree and for yourself going forward, and kind of how did that process work, if you would?
Yeah, no, so gosh, I think the first time I met Joey and Gina was in January of 2020, if I'm not wrong. And for me, and I'd been doing this, I've been with Broadtree a couple years. I'd helped them acquire about a few companies, and I've met hundreds of owners of small businesses before. For me, the biggest, the gating item, so to say, was are they good people or not? Because it's just so hard to diligence people who are trying to hide things or trying not to be, or who are not just honest people, because I wanted this to be a partnership, right? So for me, that was the first gating item. And that was an instant check in the box for me, because I felt like, and as you guys all heard, in the introduction, that these are two emotional and revere their father and care about the employees, and people who are just all in all good people, and that for me was a big kind of check in the box before I kind of dwelled into anything else. So that was a great meeting, obviously. And then apart from that, you look at, in any private equity acquisition, you look at both the industry and the company. So from an industry perspective, I think sweeping, as you, Ranger, and probably most of the listeners know, that this industry is pretty spectacular in a way where you have stable contractual cash flows, at least on the contract side, or municipality sweeping side, where you have 3 to 10 year cash flows, and you can literally plan out for the next 3 to 10 years how they look like based on your existing contracts, which in the private equity world is pretty sought after, because you can predict the cash flows in the future and plan your operations according to the cash flows that's coming in. And even on the construction side, even though there are not contracts per se, but you have repeat customers. So the customers Joey and Gina had were customers when, for the last 15 years, 20 years, even when their dad was running the business, many of the customers remain the same customers. So there's a huge kind of, this is the great thing to have customers come back to get the same service. That kind of points out to the fact that they must be doing something right, because they've been in the industry for more than 50 years, and customers keep coming back, and the businesses are growing across both aisles, which is a great proxy for that you have a good business, good solid business. Obviously, the competitive positioning was pretty unique, in that this was the 3 companies that we looked at, and then Contract and Statewide separately are one of the largest companies in the sweeping industry in California and the country, right? So that's just that having that scale helps out a lot. The brand was strong since it was established in the early or the late 50s. That's again something you can't really buy, you can't really build, you just have to buy those things, right? And then just the industry itself is, the world is going towards more regulations, especially in California. There's NPDES, phase 2 rules, Water Act that came in, where some of these services are not just good to have, they are essential services, both on the municipality side and construction sweeping side, which makes your business extremely, protectable. And we saw that during COVID, where both these businesses weren't as as affected through COVID, where many of the other businesses were. That just kind of was a case in point, knowing that that these businesses are indeed essential services. And then obviously, the industry, when you talk about that, you can't help but mention that this is a very fragmented market, right? Most of the industry, I'd say 90% of the industry are, smaller mom and pop companies with less than 10%, 10 pieces of equipment, right? Which is great to have for a private equity buyer because there's less competition, right? So if you're competing with large companies, it almost is very tough to grow outside of a regional presence. So all those things kind of made sense for us from a geography, from an industry and company perspective to go after these companies. And every day we did diligence on the company. We were pleasantly surprised. The middle management within the company was already established, which is a great comfort for somebody like me coming in with no experience of sweeping. Knowing that Joey and Gina are there, that was another added benefits, which a lot of companies don't have, just made it a recipe for success. And in the six short months we've been here, we've been able to grow the business already pretty significantly. And that was mostly because of what Joey and Gina had already put into place, which is investing in people, equipment, and processes and systems. And we've seen the effect of that come through, and then we've added a lot of kind of financial rigor ourselves, which has made the businesses, both these businesses, improve and grow. So that was kind of our whole thought process through diligence. It took us a long time because invariably, especially through COVID, there was a lot of things that we had to go back and forth on from a diligence perspective. So it took us about 9 months to close the two companies. So we closed in late October of last year. So that's pretty much how we got to know Joey and Gina and these businesses, and have just been a great pleasure since.
Well, that's well put. And I know that there no doubt were a few surprises to you guys, to the Bellas, and some may all be pleasant surprises. But what do you see, Gina, as having been the advantages to having this partnership occur?
There's so many advantages. So, and I'll segue some of my answers from Manny's, statements. When we met Manny and the Broadtree group, it was a cohesive meeting because we all thought alike. And when they look for people that weren't going to pick up and leave. They look for people like we look for people, and we hire for integrity. We didn't hire Broadtree by any means, but we surround ourselves, and our success has been by hiring people that have integrity, because you can teach sweeping, you can teach how to use Excel, you can teach a lot of different technology based items, but you can't teach integrity. And so I think even now, if we take the Vela teams and Broadtree, we're people of integrity, and how that is going to help us in the benefit of this partnership, and why Joey and I got to this point, is we were spread so thin. There's 3 companies in the factor, and in 2000, it all started from our dad's footprint of Universal Sweeping, now Universal Site Services, and that had grown tremendously. And in 2003, we started contract sweeping, trying to segment the business out. And then 2007, we segmented statewide. And in doing that, Joey and I, we did everything, just a little bit. We could never really dive deep and really improve with the things that we wanted to improve. So when we decided, we needed to streamline, we need to simplify, we're on the second half of our life now, and, we all want to, slow down and smell the roses, and we were spinning. And, Joey and I are very blessed because we've beat the odds of that second generation. We are a story that, that we get along great, you know what I mean? And we work well together, and we complement each other, and we know each other's strengths, and we know each other's weaknesses. But the benefit of taking this company all three of them to the next level is to partner with somebody like Broadtree. And what they do is they've brought statewide and contract the infrastructure, the additional funding, the knowledge, the details that Joey and I were struggling with to be able to give it that next stepping stone to go towards. And while we decided to do that with them and Manny and his team, and keeping all of our team intact, they came and did exactly what they said they were going to do. Take our company, keep everybody, everyone is important, because we are nothing without our people. That is what our dad taught us since day one, and they have the same mindset. So they just took everybody in the system and enhanced it. And Joey and I were like, music to our ears. Everything that we wanted is coming true. And we are guiding in the background. We are, giving them, our knowledge of trial and error that we've went through so many years, that they're taking that and running with it. And Joey and I are pausing for a moment. Okay, now we're digging into Universal, and we're doing all the wonderful things that we wanted in Universal. And I actually have the time to uncover. And, everyone tells me, they said, Gina, why are you so busy still? And, that you got rid of, you're not running 2 company or 3 anymore with Joey. You know what I mean? It's just 1. I'm like, but it's that rabbit hole, uncover this that I've been wanting to uncover for you. I'm like, now what about this? And what about this? What about this? And so, and it's invigorating, and I'm spending all my time in Universal and, and on ancillary with contract and statewide, working with the team. So that's a handful and a mouthful of benefits, but it's just all the foundation of finding the right people that have integrity, grit, and the gumption to take it and take the challenge on.
Well, nice. And so what that means for other people looking at this and wondering if they might be and should be or could be a target for a private equity firm. So there are some things there that you talked about. One is that you keep your people. Another is that you keep your management team intact. However, if the owner was somebody that wanted to, had some other pursuits on the side that they needed to do, or they're really overworked in their primary business, then they would have more time, or could have more time to themselves. Manny, what makes it attractive? Briefly, what is it? Is it geographical that you look for? You want 10 million, ideally. I know you'd go down a little bit for that, if need be, but what is it that makes an attractive company to you as Broadtree?
Yeah, so I think, as I put earlier, for us, partnering with the right people is the most important thing. When you talk about sweeping, right, and you and your viewers know this pretty well, that there's a huge discrepancy in terms of, or variation in terms of, the quality of service, both in terms of people and the equipment that you see across in the industry, right? So we are not in a rush to go acquire any company that we can find in the sweeping industry and in the whole Broadtree network just to acquire revenue, right? We want to partner with the right kind of people and invest time, energy, and money to grow the business both organically and inorganically. I'd say this, like 80% of my time goes into figuring out ways to help grow these business organically, right? And from to answer your question directly, I think we need to look at companies which have a track record of success, companies which typically have a repeatable revenue, or recurring revenue is what the industry term is. We want to have proven recipe for financial success. So we obviously don't want to overpay for a business and also have clear exit opportunities 5, 7, 10 years down the road, both in terms of strategic exit as well as financial buyers or sponsors coming in to buy these businesses, because that is our investors, even though they're way more patient than most private equities out there, typically would want some sort of an exit between 5 and 10 years. So those are some of the things that you typically look at, and every industry and every company is different. But I kind of highlighted the couple things that we look at from an industry perspective and the couple things we look at it from a company perspective.
Okay. And Joe, why don't I toss this one to you? What are the differences in operation these days? Have there been surprises? Are there pluses, minuses that you can talk about now that you're working with a private equity company? They obviously want their shares holders or the money to be safeguarded, and they want to expand it. And what have you seen as differences?
That's a good question. There really has been no minuses on this merger we did with Broadtree. It goes back down. We've already said it in the beginning was, we were interviewing people as well as people interviewing us on when we were looking at doing a transaction. These were interviews. And what Manny and Broadtree brought in that interview out of a few others that were ball players in this transaction was their approach on how they wanted to grow this and what they said. Gina's already said it. They have come in and have done exactly what we talked about back in January of 20. It's been no surprise. We knew what we were going to be given to Broadtree, and we knew what we were going to be getting from Broadtree, and it's been to everything that they said it was going to be. And they're growing our infrastructure that where Gina and I were struggling with on having all three companies of these three monsters trying to get them into the 21st century, where Gina and I were failing. Manny and his crew have already come in and put procedures into play that were like, oh, God damn, why didn't we do that a year ago or 2 years ago? It's just, we didn't have the time. They're really, and it's been a pleasure. My forte comes from my dad started me down from picking up cigarette butts in parking lots to washing them, to wrenching on them, to driving them, from the whole aspect of what it takes to run a street sweeping company. And it's been a pleasure to working with Manny, teaching Manny the sweeping world. He knows business. Businesses, that's where I failed on, but I've been teaching him the sweeping industry. And it's been a pleasure working with him and showing him my secrets that I knew that grew the businesses to what they are today. And I see how it excites him and excites Gina and I on what we could grow it to within more with their knowledge and their help, with the help of Gina and I. There really has been zero negative on this merger. It's been nothing but a pleasure working with. And it's funny. I'm teaching to what our dad taught me and Gina to someone else to see what they could take it to, because we saw what Gina and I could take it to. The sky's the limit on this deal coming forward with Broadtree. Because there was just, I don't want to say there was any negativity with just Gina and I. We were just overwhelmed on a day-to-day operation. It's like, oh my God, what's thrown at us now? Okay, we're never scared. We never ran from anything. We took anything head on. And that's what Manny's doing right now. And I'm learning from him as well as Gina. We're learning from Broadtree as well as just make us better in business in the universal world. And
Ranger,
I'll just segue for you. It's all the positives that he's bringing is streamlined operations and then technology. I'm sure, Manny, that you want to give some examples.
Yeah, no,
it's only going to grow that company even more as well.
Yeah, and that kind of ties back to the things that we look at when we buy companies is a solid management team, having great mentors like Joey and Gina. And those are things that we want to set in place, because I want to come in and look at the back end stuff first and improve that, because I know already from an operations perspective, the business is doing pretty well, right?
Sure.
So when we came in, we looked at, specifically we looked at technology. I know in this industry, people are hard workers, people, who put in their grit and put in all the energy and effort that they have to make a great product from a sweeping perspective. But there are some things that you can potentially come in from a technology perspective that can help improve the operations, whether it's a billing software, whether it's a CRM system, which we are installing right now. We're also installing a new fleet management software called IntelliShift, which is a great software where you can understand at an equipment level what is the utilization rate, when the engine was turned on, when was the gutter boom turned on, things like that, that can help us run this business way more analytically, which Joey and Gina, have been they've been doing this so long that it was probably a lot easier for them to intuitively figure out. But for us, we just wanted to have a lot more data behind some of the decisions we wanted to make. And then, having done that, just have invest more in the systems and processes, especially as it relates to financial functions, which in most businesses this size, it's traditionally not as much investment goes into that. That includes having, the right KPIs, the right compensation that follows those KPIs, figuring out, what the cadence of your, one-on-one team meeting should be, how often should you talk about those certain items, what's your short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, how do you align the resources of the company in bringing or supporting the team to get that short-term, medium-term, long-term goals established. And then lastly, I would say there is a slight, you want to buy a great culture, and these two companies have been phenomenal cultures to begin with. You couldn't have asked for more. People were, already had an owner's mindset. They thought about companies' money as their own money. They're all hardworking, culture of customer success, which was already there. But there's a small shift that needs to happen from an owner-led company where the decisions are typically run or made at the top, versus kind of segregating that decision-making power to more managerial level, where people are making and accountable for their own P&Ls. And that's a shift that needs to be, that takes some time to kind of get from where it is to where it has to be for it to be a scalable unit. So once you have those scalable units, then you can multiply those scalable units to many geographies, many industries within this sweeping industry, and grow, right? So you need to kind of invest in all those different functions that I talked about before you set up. These are kind of like having the base of the building that needs to be set up right before you start building the buildings and putting on floors on the building. And that's what we are focused on. And mind you, that's only possible when everything else is working really well, which it has been. Right. So that's why when we talked about what I look or what we look for companies to buy, you look for all these repeatable revenue, the culture, the brand, the middle management that has to be in place for me to be able to focus on all the other items versus coming in and trying to firefight day one, not knowing enough about the industry. So that's what we have done so far. We want to continue doing that. And, it's such a happy marriage because, you have the experience of Joey and Gina. And then, and if I may add, I can come in and add the energy and the financial rigor and systems and processes that was needed to take this company from where it is to a much bigger enterprise and truly unlock the potential that both Contract and Statewide have. It's just a joy and pleasure to do that every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems if I was going to sum up what I just heard, it sounds like you have allowed the introduction of Broadtree to this management team has allowed the companies to start acting proactively instead of reactively, and having the financial strength to know what the best practices are on a national and actually international scale, and then to apply those best practices, to the company. I know, Gina, you may have to leave us at some point. So whenever that happens, I'll thank you in advance and let you click out. I think the people listening to this, the whole idea of a private equity company is really kind of scary. When somebody asks me about, they're thinking about selling out, should they sell to their competitor across town? They've been approached by a private equity company and so forth. It's kind of a scary business. what I tell them is my understanding is with private equity companies, you know, they want profitability, but at the same time, they want growth. They want involvement with the current management. They want to keep the employees in place. You sell across town. What's going to happen is you're going to consolidate into the office, probably across town with their management team. Some of your employees will make it, some won't. They'll consolidate routes and so forth. And to me, if you're thinking about the welfare of the people in your company, that's probably not as good a solution. So where are you, for those people who are listening to us now and wondering, might a private equity company be right for me? And even further, might Broadtree be right for me? We know that the elephant in the room is Sweeping Corporation of America. They're now the largest self-performing company out there. They are private equity backed. Broadtree is entering this in a big way here in the Northern California marketplace. What are your plans, Manny, going forward? And I know that now that you have your financial information in place, you are learning quickly about the sweeping side of it, which the two Bellas can continue to help you with, as well as the mid-management people. What is it you're after now? Do you want to do more? Do you want to do more later? What's the process?
Yeah. No, yeah. Thanks for that question. So, you know, first of all, what SCA has done really, you know, is what was the starting point for us when we started looking into the world of sweeping, right? So tremendous respect for what they've built, right, over the years, acquiring as many companies as they have and the growth that they've had. And now after having, you know, support from one of the largest private equities in the world, Warburg Pincus, they are slated to do even better. So tremendous respect for them, and they're kind of the reason why we got into the space. You know, and we are just hoping to, you know, be doing what they did on the East Coast. We just want to do that on the West Coast, and grow, you know, grow both organically and inorganically. The one focus, you know, the way Broadtree works is we have now 9 portfolio companies. Each of the portfolio companies is in a different industry, right? So our goal is to go in and invest the time, money, and energy and effort to grow the company both organically and inorganically, right? So as I said earlier, 80% of my time is spent in trying to understand how can we grow, which is both on the CSS side, how do we work with municipalities, how do we work with you know, bids, how do we rebid existing customers to get our better margins. For example, on the statewide side, we are focused on how do we regionally grow by having satellite offices. You know, how much do we invest in equipment, people, systems, IT systems, and processes? That's my focus for the 80% of my times. We also look at strategic acquisitions, right? I think that's one of the faster ways to grow, right? But I'm a firm believer that it has to make sense in terms of, again, having a happy marriage for us to grow that ways. I am of the personal opinion that there's a lot of work that needs to happen, both in terms of acquiring businesses and then integrating businesses, where you need an entire team to be doing that. And SCA is set up for that, right? Where they have an entire team both acquiring businesses and integrating businesses. So our goal for the short term is to get the bearings right, understand, learn the business, start organically growing, and be opportunistic in terms of acquisitions. And we're looking at a few acquisitions right now, and we'll see how they progress in the coming years. But we're not in a rush to go out and acquire businesses like SCA did back in the day. And you know, we see every day as it comes, right? All the options are open, and we are very nimble around you know, our financial structure, the financial resources we have behind us, to adapt to any competition that might come up. We right now, as it sits, we hold 70% of the municipality market in Northern California. I would say we own at least 50% of construction sweeping market in Northern California, and these are all long-standing contracts. and longstanding relationships on the construction side that we are very confident of, right? And it's extremely hard for any player, to come in and take that away from us because these are contractual natures. So we're very comfortable in where we stand right now. I think the next step would be to understand where and how we want to grow, and that's what we're investing in. And and frankly, learning from SC as they do it, and then make strategic moves. And that's all we can say at this point. It's been 6 months running the business, and we have goals and priorities that we are establishing in coming months. As you know, the market and industry is changing every day, so that's supposed to change as well. But yeah, both organic and inorganic, there's a huge amount of market. Even in the waste industry, there are multiple players right now. So I don't see a reason why the two of us can't coexist, and also figure out ways to potentially, grow beyond our Northern California market. But that's just time will tell, and we'll know more as time progresses. But we're excited about having this competition, because when you have the competition and we have the amount of money that's being poured in this industry, things get better. And if you're good, you kind of float, and that's what we are hoping to do.
Well, it seems clear that you would be able to withstand any kind of incursion better with Broadtree backing than you would have been with just contract sweeping and statewide. So there's no question there. And so you're looking primarily at the West Coast, but you're willing to consider other geographical areas in the country. Would that be accurate to say?
Yes, it is accurate, but obviously, as I said, we want to make sure that our house is in order, right? So we can't have like smaller companies spread across the country, because managing that and integrating that would be tough. But if there are companies which are more self-sufficient, which can act as a division for us, which, like, we have 3 locations in Northern California. For all practical purposes, all these 3 offices are pretty independently run. So, if you have businesses and people that we can partner with, and I don't say acquire them, I say partner, I'm using that word, strategically, I'm all for figuring out what can we do, right? But that inherently kind of means that it has to be a certain size, it needs to be, certain kind of people, but we're open for any companies that may fit that bill in terms of growth to California and outside California.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this has been very instructive, and I know it will be seen that way by the people that take the time to listen to this. We're really coming into an hour, which is a good time to handle it. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing, Gina, and then Joe?
Go ahead, Gina.
I just want to thank you, Ranger, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate World Sweeper. It's a great platform. You reach so many people in our industry, and we're grateful for all your hard work.
Oh, well.
And Manny, you know what I mean? We couldn't do it without you taking it to the next level. And, and Joey and I, are grateful for that as well. And, I appreciate the extra time that has allowed me to spend in Universal, and even with my family. My mornings aren't crazy like they used to be.
Yeah, it's been truly a pleasure. Ranger, thank you again for today. And it's been a pleasure with this acquisition that we've done with Manny. And we are, Gina and I, and we're showing Manny, and Manny's showing us, we're not scared of any kind of competition. Good competition
Keeps
is
us on our
good.
toes.
And that's what kept Gina and I going for a long time. And Manny's seeing that we don't quit. We go after it hard. There's always a way to skin a cat, and we'll get it done. We're here. We've been here, God, since '58. I don't see us going anywhere real soon. We've been fighters, and we're going to keep on fighting along and chugging along and growing this company, these 2 companies even more, and Universal as well. I'm too young to retire. I can't retire. I can't sit at home. I can only hunt so much. So I got to do something during the day, and let's build this thing even more.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know what I would do if I retired.
Daytime TV, isn't that something?
Oh God.
I don't even.
Yeah. Sit around eat bonbons.
I don't know if TV Guide even exists anymore. So
yeah.
I agree, and that's why you see all this white covered fur on me, and I'm still here. I could have retired several years ago, but I still have a lot of passion for the industry and so forth. So thank you all three very much. I think this will be very illuminating for people who want to know more about what a private equity company can do. We learned about the beginnings of the two of you in the sweeping industry, and I look forward to at some point having your father and maybe Larry Dyke and maybe Mike Dyke and
Oh.
who knows who else.
Oh God.
What a hoot that would be.
How to keep that.
That one would
seriously
go.
gotta
That
make
one
it
would go
happen.
for a while.
So let's leave it there, and thanks to all three of you, and I wish you the best of luck. But I know that you know as well as I do, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. You are very prepared, and when the opportunity arises, I think you'll certainly take advantage of it. So
Yes,
thanks
sir.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Ranger.
much, Ranger.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thank
Bye.
you.